Please give it up for Amy.
I have a confession to make. I have changed 7 jobs in the last 7 years. There, I said it. And if you don't believe me, here's proof. A collection of all of my workspaces. And I think this office dog was more loyal to any company than I ever was. I think I'm every recruiter's worst nightmare. But I swear, I'm generally a very stable person. My coffee order has been consistent and my Spotify playlist has the same songs since I was a teenager. So if my manager is watching right now, I would like to clarify, I'm very employable. So I'm not gonna lie, changing jobs that often has led me to some incredible opportunities. But it also meant a lot of first days. I'm curious, who can relate? Let's try something. Raise your right hand, very, very high, if you have changed jobs in the last year. Okay, and raise your left hand super, super high if you have stayed less than a year in a company. Okay, that makes me feel better. I'm not alone out there in the world. So 7 jobs. 7 times I walked into an office being the new kid. And every single time I felt like I was the puzzle piece trying to connect with the rest of the puzzle. I mean, if you think about it, the expectations we have from newcomers are huge. In a matter of weeks, you are supposed to memorize 30 different names, figure out who's approving your expenses, read a ton of company manuals, and somehow at the end of the week show up at Friday drinks and have fun while your brain is still buffering. And to make matters worse, you also need to navigate cultural nuances, work with different people, different generations, different locations, different time zones, manage conflicts, solve problems. And if I gave you a panic attack already, I'm really sorry. But onboarding isn't just about getting up to speed with your role description. It also requires you to step into a whole new social world. And this part, this social part, is something that we don't really see developing naturally. And this doesn't just stop at onboarding. The moment you're part of the team, you're now expected to feel fully integrated, like you were always there. But integration takes time. And without support, it often doesn't happen at all. I mean, imagine that you're at your school and then you are given the curriculum and then they tell you, okay, good luck, figure it out, see you at graduation. Chaos. But companies do that all of the time. And I have seen it not only as a personal experience, but also something that plays out again and again in my line of work. I'm working primarily in HR, in human resources. I have helped hire people, integrate them. I have worked with managers, and I have worked with teams on how to connect and how to work better. And most often than not, I'm stepping into fixing mode, trying to fix problems, difficulties in communicating, collaboration. And then it hit me. What if, instead of fixing problems after they arise, we build resilient teams from the start? So that question brought me back to my student years. I was an active volunteer back then, and I was part of organizations that brought together students from different backgrounds with a task to plan and execute large-scale events like this one. We didn't know each other before, and yet, despite those challenges, we saw remarkable effectiveness, adaptability, and teamwork. Why? Because we took time to connect first, to get to know each other so that we can rely on one another for the days to come. Essentially, we went from a group of total strangers to a well-oiled machine in a matter of hours, and I never felt stuck or have a conflict with a fellow organizer. That had to account for something. So I thought to myself, okay, what is missing from building truly successful teams? Could this connection be attributed as a success factor in bringing the teams together? So this is me telling you that I went into a deep internet rabbit hole, searching for what science has to say in all of this. And I came across this. This is a team performance model developed by Drexler and Sibet. I'm not going to throw a psychology textbook at you, but what I can tell you is that this model shows why some teams work and why others feel like a group project where one person does all the work. The 4 stages on the left, so all about the team development, how teams are formed. And the 3 stages on the right are all about achieving high performance. Out of curiosity, if we look on the left at the 4 stages about team development, if you had to choose one of these steps that is consistently overlooked in companies nowadays, which number would that be? 1, 2, 3, or 4? All right, I see that there's a lot of 1s and 2s. If we think about it, orientation is primarily addressed in onboarding. But when it comes to trust building, what is actually being done here? Do companies actually prioritize this step, or do they just hope that it develops over time? And if you think about it, trust doesn't just happen overnight. It needs time. When we go into a new environment, a new relationship, a new job, or a new place, we scan the environment for safety. And until we feel that way, we're staying in defensive mode. But when we do feel safe, then we open up, then we're ready to connect. And this is when trust is formed. I would like to experiment with something. For the next 10 seconds, I would like you to turn to your neighbor. And for only 10 seconds, I promise only 10, I would like you to stare into their eyes. No talking, just eye contact. I will count and I can tell you where to stop, so it's not gonna be too awkward. Okay, you can start. Okay, you can stop. Some of you just bonded, while others are reconsidering your seat choice. But trust me, that 10-second awkward interaction built more trust than a week of small talk. Why? Because the key ingredient here is that this moment of shared vulnerability you just had is a key ingredient to forming trust. And granted, trust can be built organically by just letting things happen in their own time. But everything in the workplace now moves fast. Everything is now. We don't have time for trust to be built. And that's when most teams fail. Because before trust is formed, we require people to work together as if it was always there. So it's more important than ever to build trust intentionally and to make it part of your team's culture from day one. And this is what I wanted to bring with you today. I would like to present a team building cycle that I have seen working in my volunteering days, and I believe that it can truly make a change, not only to the teams that I have worked with and the teams that I facilitated, but also in your teams. This team building cycle is aimed at building trust across 5 levels of playful interactions. So the key elements here are team building, trust, and play. I will go into each element in a bit. But for now, let's see what those levels are, why they are important, and how they can be brought to life. Let's start with the first one, the introduction. The introduction phase is all about forming a sense of understanding and belonging with your team members. This is the moment where we want people to see each other as individuals, not just roles. We want them to move from a sense of we before they get to what. Think about speed dating like coffee chats or team lunches so that your team members can get properly acquainted. Then we have the connection phase. And this is where we want to go a bit deeper. We want people to feel more safe to open up, share more about themselves, and be vulnerable. When people feel safe to open up, they build what we call knowledge-based trust. And here what we want to see is that they found similarities, common ground, and they build empathy. For example, before jumping into a project, my team back in the day, we found some time to really connect and share how we like to work. These conversations that don't really happen. How do we like to receive feedback? How do we prefer to have meetings? Maybe we are not morning people. I know I'm not. And after having this conversation, I never had a morning meeting at 9 a.m. Thank God. The next stage is energizing. This is where we bring the element of fun, but not just for the sake of having it, but rather as a structured and purposeful way to remove any fear of judgment, to dissolve hierarchy and stiff formality. Because then people can let loose and be themselves, and we create a sense of we're all in this together. For example, in my current team, we kick off every team meeting with a quick energizer. Something simple, like Simon says. And it really lifts our spirits and makes us feel more comfortable with each other. So then the meeting afterwards goes smoothly. Then we have the reliance level. And this is where trust deepens into resilience and reliability. Teams with higher reliance levels are better equipped to handle conflicts, navigate setbacks, and find solutions together. Knowing that you can rely on someone means that you know that your teammates will be there to support you when you need it, but also offer you constructive feedback and engage in open and honest communication. And finally, we move to the problem-solving stage. This is the moment where everything comes into play, because basically what you have done so far is build that safe space so that your team members are now empowered to voice new ideas, to challenge the status quo, and experiment with alternative approaches. All because now trust is integral and part of your team's culture. So now you might be wondering, great, but how do we use this? I mean, granted, this is a recipe that's primarily used in newly formed teams because they go through all of the stages, but this doesn't mean that you cannot mix and match. You can use it when you need it. And that's why it's so beautiful, because it's not a checklist, it's a toolkit. Are you onboarding new team members? You can start at Introduce and Connect. Do you sense that there might be a bit of disengagement in your team? You can go to Energize. Do you see tension or miscommunication? That's perfect for the Rely stage. And do you need some innovation or find some problem-solving strategies together? That is the Solve phase. But there is something else, something I mentioned earlier that sits at the heart of all of this. And it's play. Play. That thing we associate with childhood, pure freedom and joy. I think I see some raised eyebrows. So, okay, before I go on, I'm curious. Has any of you been engaged in a playful interaction or activity at work? Okay, I see a few. And for how many of you was this awkward? Okay, I get it. That is because often play at work is just treated as a quick forced fix, an energizer or icebreaker thrown in without context, and then that leads people to have that, oh, here we go again feeling. I have seen it quite a lot. And this is because it's not a deliberate part of the process, it's just a one-off thing. But when done right, play accelerates trust building. Because when we play, we don't think. We don't have the pressure to perform or to impress or say the right thing. We just play because it's a game, it's instinctive. And that's why it's so powerful. So how do we provide that context that people need to remove that awkward feeling? Here is where the process of debriefing comes into the picture. What we need to do is to connect the insights we gain from those games with something tangible. Because if you think about it, every game and every playful interaction serves a purpose: to energize, to rely, to solve. So right after playing, when we anchor the insights we gain from that game to something real life in our work, it's even more memorable. For example, in one of my team building sessions, I played a quick problem-solving game. I asked the team to form a circle, and then the task was to pass a tennis ball around in the fastest way possible. So then the team came up with solutions, tested alternatives, gave each other feedback, iterated until they succeeded. These are useful learnings that we can use in the project. And because the game provides a low-stakes environment for experimentation, we also see more genuine behaviors reaching the surface. And we also can see more authentic insights into how the team truly functions. That's what makes the learning memorable and powerful. So, what we see here is that through play, we have aha moments. And aha moments come from personal discovery, not just passive instruction. Earlier, I shared with you my experience of being the new kid in 7 different companies. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if instead of feeling like an outsider, I would feel welcomed, like joining a community, not just a company? Instead of being busy memorizing names and reading company manuals, we would immediately be engaged with our colleagues, learning their names, but also their strengths, their backgrounds, their sense of humor, all of that organically through playful interactions. It's efficient, it's effective, and it's actually enjoyable. And you know what? Maybe then I wouldn't have changed 7 jobs in 7 years. So here's my invitation to you, as future leaders, as future change makers. Don't just wait for connection to happen. Don't rely on the fact that because your team has to work together, they will eventually connect. That is passive. That is leaving connection to chance. And chance isn't a gamble that we can take with human potential. Be intentional. You have the power to shape the experience, to redefine what it means to start a new job. You can have an impact on someone's first day. Because deep down, behind every task, every deadline, and every project, there are people. People who crave belonging, who thrive on connection, and who deserve nothing more than a workplace where they can truly be themselves. Because ultimately, we're not just building better teams, we're building better ways to connect and better ways to work. The future of work is human. And the most human thing we can do is play. Thank you.